everybody, and welcome back. For those of you that missed the new one, hey, Happy New Year, and a blessed feast of the Nativity or the Theophany, depending on your calendar. Anyway, welcome back to Orthodox Review, where today we will take a very deep and uneducated look at the St. Ambrose Prayerbook, from Lancelot Andrew Press. Now, before we continue, please make sure to stay tuned to the end of the video for very important information. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, yada, 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 Patreon, blah, blah, blah. At any rate, let's get into this. I'm a fan of this book. Reason being, before I even get into the book, I came from a Roman Catholic background, and then kind of through the Episcopal Church, and then wound up in Orthodoxy. So this book is kind of an amalgamation of the three. It's actually based on the, what's it called? The St. Augustine Prayerbook, which was an Anglo-Catholic prayer book published back in 1947. When I was still an Episcopalian, I found a copy in the library and was like, oh yes, this is it. And then, of course, it wasn't too long after that I was welcomed home into the Orthodox Church. So this is the first edition, published by Lancelot Andrew Press, edited by John Guy Winfrey. This is from 2008, retails for $24 plus shipping and handling. It is that faux leather sort of rubbery stuff, which is nice. Sewed and glued binding. I will say that it doesn't break in per se, but like you kind of, it's got a very tight binding on it, so that it takes a while to kind of get the creases in closer to the edge of the pages. But once you do, it's fine. So it may feel a little tight up in the binding here for a while, but with regular use, it will break in. So we've already mentioned that it's based on the St. Augustine Prayerbook from 1947. Of course, all the contents have been revised to conform to Orthodox theology, although, and we'll get into this in a little bit, there's a couple things in here that are points of contention for people, especially some hard-lined Orthodox of a specific ethnic background, whose name we won't mention, because we're all about trying to share the positive here, and we're not getting into anything about jurisdictions, although this is used in the Antiochian Archdiocese of the Western Rite. There are a few really cool things in here outside of the normal stuff. Now, the normal stuff being your daily prayers and devotions. Now, for those of you not familiar with Western Rite Christianity, the forms they use for everything are drastically different than what's in the Eastern Rite, and a lot of that has to do with just the way devotion evolved in the West, where there wasn't, these major metropolitan areas of monasteries and great church fathers. That being said, the prayers are quite beautiful. Of course, I am just slightly biased because of my upbringing. So just to give you an idea, and this is basically some catechetical stuff here, not too different from what you would find in most Eastern books. I'm sorry, but let's get to it. Like this is the same stuff you find in Little Red, pretty much. Which it's nice to see that's in there. Now, the common prayers are actually pretty much the core of any prayer service. So you have the Lord's Prayer, Hail Mary, Apostles' Creed, the Comforter, the Gloria, the Lesser Doxology, and Graces, and then you have morning prayers, which really, if you were to throw the traditional Eastern Trisagion in front of this, it's pretty Eastern. Now, when you get to the Holy Masses of St. Gregory and Tikhon, these are based off of the Episcopal Church's liturgy. These were both approved by Saint Tikhon of Moscow, which is why the second one is named for him. And of course, that being the Mass of St. Gregory being the Roman Catholic version, and the Mass of St. Tikhon being the Anglican version. Again, both corrected for Orthodox theology. Now, a couple of things that I truly love about this book. The first and foremost is the 7 penitential psalms. And these are the Coverdale psalms. There's antiphons and glory bees and all that. But the psalms are 6, 31, 37, 50, 101, 129, and 142. Let me repeat that slower in case you want to write it down. Psalms 6, 31, 37, 50, 101, 129, and 142. And those are, of course, according to the Septuagint numbering. And I have found that sometimes if I am super lazy in the morning and I have not done my morning prayers, when I finally do drag my sinful carcass out of bed, I read these 7, and I'm not going to tell you how it makes me feel or what I think it does, but I do it. Now, as far as classic pre-schism content goes, if you're not familiar with the Te Deum, get familiar with it. Google it. Because it's a beautiful prayer, and it really does encapsulate everything we say in our worship and prayers. Of course, it's attributed to St. Ambrose, but again, the jury's still out on that. There's also on page 196, you have preparation for communion. If I can find it. It's back here. But you do have preparation for communion and the examination of conscience, which you don't find in too many prayer books. I'm glad that it's in here. There are a few other books that I have with it in there, and it goes through the 7 grievous sins, and it's pretty, and the 10 Commandments, pretty thorough. And then the only points of contention really in here are some of the Western devotions that you find post-schism that are surprisingly orthodox in content. Let's see. There. So you have all these devotions to the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. You have the Rosary, which is perfectly orthodox. In fact, the Rosary goes back as far as the 7th century. So, jump off me. Get off my back already. But the one thing that people really have an issue with here is the benediction and visit to the Blessed Sacraments. I'm not gonna say one thing, one way or the other to that, but as you all know, within Orthodoxy, we don't hold up a consecrated host and worship before it. That's just not something we do. Although I will say, there's always consecrated bread and wine in the tabernacle on the altar. So really, this isn't too horribly unorthodox. Make of it what you will. But regardless, the prayers are beautiful and a great showing of our faith and devotion. So, when you see the title, the benediction of the Blessed Sacrament, don't have a cow, man. They're just prayers, and the prayers, of course, they've all been looked over by Orthodox theologians and priests, and believe me, they're Orthodox. At any rate, this is one of those books you really have to read to to understand. I love the novenas too. Those are, I mean, the West really does have a great tradition of, what's the word I was looking for? Devotionals. Much like the way in the East we use the prayer rope, and in the West we use the rosary beads. And two totally different types of prayer, and yet they complement one another. Whereas the prayer rope is the prayer of the heart, it's an internal thing. The rosary is a prayer on the lips and in the mind that we use to externalize our devotion. They are, in my eyes, two sides of the same coin, which is why I use both. Fight me. Anyway, I said at the beginning there would be important news. So here's the important news. There is no important news. I tricked you, haha. No, just kidding. I actually have two patrons on Patreon now, so if you would like to join my loyal group of followers on Patreon who, as of now, are supporting me with $9 a month to pay for books for the show. But I don't mind paying the money. It's nice to have a little help. Anyway, please go check that out. I'm going to have some exclusive content on there soon. I'm also working on recordings of the rules of prayer out of some of the books that I've been reviewing. So that's a project to be on the lookout for. I don't have very good recording equipment. In fact, still doing everything on this here phone. So we'll see what that goes. At any rate, this has been Orthodox Review. 1.5 thumbs up on this one. I'm a fan of this book. Lancelot Andrew Press really does a good job with their publications. And I do have more Western Rite Orthodox books to come. I've got 3 more in my personal collection already that we'll be taking a look at in the future. But I've rambled long enough. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in and supporting the show. Please don't forget, go to church, say your prayers, and remember God. God bless. Hey, Spooky Cat, did you want to do the outro? No? You're good? Okay.